Guys, welcome back to Becoming a Bow Hunter. Sitting here for round two with Grant, Randy Rand. Welcome, Grant.
Hey, how you going, bud?
I'm good, dude. So, I mean, we've done quite a lot of work together over the last year, and over that time, we've had some really good conversations about bow hunting, really good conversations about business, and I think there's some things that we can really kind of share with the community. So, I'm kind of excited for this one to drop, especially some of the new stuff that you guys have going on at Kayuga. And we were just talking about stock lists and stuff moving forward and how it's going to kind of progress and how it's progressed so far. And really, you haven't been able to keep up with the request or with the requirement of people bow hunting with your gear, which is awesome. Like that's obviously a big kind of testament in itself. But let's maybe dive in before we even get into your broadhead stuff. I want to talk about one of the recent hunts, that recent buck that you got. Tell us about that. What happened? He's a stunner.
Yeah, it was. I was pretty bloody. I'm pretty stoked with it. I'm still, as you can, if you're watching the video, I still got that big Cheshire cat grin because it's, it was a proper awesome hunt experience moment. The whole thing. I've been chasing a big velvet buck for what are we at now? 2021, 2014. So that'd be 7 years. I've effectively like dedicated a week every year, early Feb, to chasing this, and never actually seen one that ticked the boxes to hunt or to chase. Like I've seen a few younger ones and stuff, but the bigger fellas sort of always, for whatever reason, the fallow do, especially where I hunt. It may be different where other guys hunt, but where I hunt, they seem to just go AWOL from, I'd say mid-January. I can track them on the cameras and seeing them around and stuff. Yeah, mid-Jan to mid-Feb until they're rubbed out. They sort of just completely disappear. And the last couple of years, like literally, I probably saw 5 or 6 velvet heads in that last 7 years of chasing them. So it was, and I've tried different things, hunting different places. And
can I interrupt real quick? Do they, so their boys that hang out on your block, they leave for while they're rowing out and then they come back to your block, or do they disappear for the rut as well?
I mentioned it last night. I'm pretty lucky. I've got a fair whack of properties that like adjoin each other along a fairly good ridge. So throughout the year, they move to different places. Like they'll move in winter to chase the food. And normally that's where, if there's crops around, if someone's got oats or something in, majority of the boys will move down into that oat country. And I love hunting them post-rut when they're coming off the crops and stuff like that, because you can get up high early in the morning, glass them while they're out feeding, pick the buck that you sort of want and try and intercept his travel route back to where he's going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even the first day you literally just get there and watch to see where he goes, because the bigger fellas, they'll travel with the mob on and off the crop. And once they get back to that timber line, they sort of split and go their own way. So it can pay dividends. Like if you're going for a 2 or 3 day hunt, the first day, just watch where they go, because it might be into a gully where there's a really good spot to ambush or something. And I'm a little bit impatient. I'd see them and just go straight for them. And I can't say I fluked it because I've done it like 3 or 4 times now, but a couple of years back it would have been like a 4-year on the fallow, just because I didn't see what I wanted to shoot during the rut and helping other guys get onto their critters. And I ended up getting onto a real handy fella, and just I fluked that one by putting myself, it was the first time I'd seen him, put myself in the right spot, and he walked up like 25 meters, quartering on slightly.
This is the recent one that you got?
No, that's not him. No, this is it's probably going back like 4 years, that one. I can remember that hunt, take you to the exact spot I was, where he was, where the arrow, and he was feeding quartering onto me. And I got so caught up in the moment, I ranged him at about 30, and then he's continued to feed in, and I thought he was feeding diagonally to me, where he's actually feeding sort of towards me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I didn't move me pin. I shot him at 30 and he was only 25, so I ended up hitting him a bit higher, hit the spine and dropped him on the spot, and had to give him a quick follow-up. But that was the same thing, just hunting them post-rut on the crops, getting above them, glassing like there half an hour before the sun come up, looking through the binoculars and just making out rough shapes of deer, and then as the light increased, when he is worth looking at a bit closer. And yeah, lucky me mate Mick was with me. He got it all on film as well. So
that's it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So was it a quartering away shot? Sorry, a quartering on shot?
Yeah, so it's when I took the shot, he was probably nearly broadside.
Okay, yeah.
So
is there shots that you would and wouldn't take? Like, what's your kind of, and obviously you've been hunting for a while now, but is there ones that you don't like to take, like front on shots versus a quartering on? Or
look, there's a time and a place.
Mm-hmm.
Every shot comes down to what that animal's doing. If it's alert, obviously that changes everything. If it's relaxed and feeding, well, then you can get away with a bit more. You know, if deer are highly strung, so there's distances and things like that. I'm pretty what's the word for it? I'm pretty passionate about keeping shots under 30 meters on deer and things as such.
Yeah.
Like on a goat, I'm happy to push the boundaries out. Like the longest goat I've ever shot at was 72 meters. And I was practicing for New Zealand, and old mate had said, be comfortable shooting at sort of 70, 80 meters, because you may put yourself in a position where you have to shoot across a gully.
Yeah.
And that shot may be 60, 70, 80 meters.
Yeah, wow.
You have to be comfortable shooting that far. So yeah, that hunt, like I did in November, I started practicing a month and a half, 2 months before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was practicing at 100 meters.
Yeah.
So
it's insane.
And then, just went out to the block, basically went purely for a hunt to basically long bomb a couple of goats to get the confidence up and sort of have when the crunch comes to it, I knew that I could do it, because prior to that, like I think I'd stretch the legs maybe 35, 40 would be, at one point in time, I'd never take a shot over sort of 20 meters. I was just shot a single pin sight, and the guy that taught me to hunt said, if you sort of can't get into that 20 meter, 20, 24, around that 20 meter mark, if you've got to move your pin, the animals beat you already. So you sort of have to give it the benefit of the doubt, and it's won the battle.
Yeah.
He was a little bit more old school in his philosophy and stuff like that. And as I progressed and learnt what gear can do and what it can't do, I've pushed my range out. But I've always worked on, around 30, my distance on a deer, and probably say 40 would be my distance on like a pig or a goat or something that's not as highly strung.
Yeah. I tell you what, like, since having newer, better gear, my range has definitely increased. Like, I was not confident in shooting anything more than probably 25, max 30 meters. And even 30 meters, I was like, not really sure at all. I got my first boar down a few weekends ago, and that was at 37 meters. And it's because there was a fence line that if I crossed, there was no way I couldn't not take it if I was going to get a shot at this boar. And I was like, you know what, it's kind of now or never. He's feeding, there's no worries, and got the shot, and it was double lung. It was perfect. Like, I couldn't have asked for better.
But before you took that shot, you were super confident in
so
your ability.
Confidence. Yeah.
But also to the situation that he was in, which is sort of what I started on when I diverted 6 stories ago.
Yeah.
But like the animal's temperament and the animal's behavior is governing for a lot of it. Like if you're rattling bucks in, like we're coming up to the rut. So if you're rattling a buck in and you're rattling and shooting yourself, you're drawing attention to yourself. So the buck is coming into that sound. He's pinpointed you. You start doing movements and stuff like that. He's already onto that. He already knows, like they can pinpoint. We hear a sound and we're sort of like, oh, it's kind of that way. Whereas you can whistle a fox, rattle a buck, and they beeline. Like they can be 300 meters, and you watch them. They literally like turn and stare through you to that sound. They know, and their sense of everything is heightened on ours tenfold. Like we are terrible creatures in the grand scheme of things with our senses compared to like some of the wild things that we chase, and that's probably why we love it so much.
Lucky a lot of us have big brains, apparently.
Well, that's the only thing that saves us is our brains a little bit. Well, most of us, our brains a little bit bigger. There's a few people that you could question that theory, but alertness, awareness, the situation, head down feeding. You know, if there's a strong wind, if there's not a strong wind, that's a dynamic question, and there's no basic answer I can give you for that one, except if it feels right. And you have to be 100% confident, one, in your ability, and two, in the situation. If there's the slightest, you know, thought that you're not going to get this right, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the animal and definitely. You owe it to the rest of us, because unfortunately this day and age with social media and all of that stuff there, everyone's pushing the hypothetical envelope to deliver more, you know, get better trophy shots and the grip and grins and stuff like that. But at what cost is it? You know, you hear the stories about the guy and things at 50, 60, 70 consecutively, and you sort of got to wonder how many didn't actually make the grip and grin photo, how many are still running around with an arrow hanging out of them, or how many died
exactly. I think there is a bit of a disconnect, right? Like when you're seeing people like Levi Morgan, who's literally top of the world, taking shots at 100 yards and nailing goats and like the mountain goats and doing those big ass muleys and stuff that he does, people are like, oh, that's doable. I can go and do it. And there's just that disconnect of he's been doing it his whole life. He's also literally the top of the world. So it's no worries for him to make that call. And even then, if you watch his series, like you'll see that he stuffs up. Like he still takes shots that he shouldn't, or he says he shouldn't have taken, or that he pulls the bow or does something wrong because of the adrenaline dump and everything that happens in that moment. So yeah, I think really like putting a guideline of like 20 meters or something on yourself to start with until you get like 3, 4, 5 critters down, and maybe on each new species. Like I think that's a great way to do it and approach it.
Well, I would have said it before in the last podcast because I bloody say it all the time, but a tennis ball sort of size is, if you can put your arrows consecutively inside that sort of grouping, that is your effective range. But that's your effective range on a foam target that doesn't move, that doesn't have instincts, that can't turn, that can't drop, roll, you know, run away. You in the field, you change all of that because now you've got this animal that it's got a heightened sense of hearing, it's got a heightened sense of sight. If it's alert, if you've sort of half spooked it already, it's already cottoned on. You can. I've watched videos of like Cheer and Fallow. You watch the arrow shoot, slow it down in slow mo. You follow the arc of where it was and where the hunter was aiming. You put a dot on the screen where it was, and you watch the arrow sail in, and you know, a half a second before the arrow gets there. So let's say it's a 25-meter shot. That arrow's at 20 meters and it's on the money. It's Smoke City. We're taking that thing to the taxidermist tonight. In that 5 meters, that animal has the time to react enough to completely drop, roll. Arrow flies over its back. It bounces off nonetheless, and your effective range on a target isn't your effective range on an animal. You need to know the animal, you know, what its habits are. Like you said, Levi with a mountain goat. I've never hunted mountain goats, but from all the videos, they seem to shoot them from a distance. So I'm going to take a guess and say they don't react to the shots the same as what a deer does. I know from experience, goats don't react to a shot the same way as a deer does. Different species of deer react differently. Like I know rooster deer aren't as highly strung as fallow rooster. I haven't hunted everything else enough to give a
what'd you say? Rooster deer aren't as jumpy.
They're not as highly strung. They don't seem to drop as much. In saying that, I missed one early this year that I had me pin set wrong and I went straight over the back of it. And it actually, like, we got it on film and it dropped a fair bit. I think if I was pin right and aiming at the right spot, it might have been a different story. But it wouldn't have been the perfect shot that I'd hoped for. I would have, you know, clipped the top of one lung as it sort of stopped, dropped, and rolled. But majority of the rusa that I've hunted or seen get shot and stuff like that, they don't drop as much. And talking to guys that hunt rusa as a sort of bread and butter staple, they're of the same kind of opinion. Yeah, they're not as highly strung, but you can't just the situation will tell you if that animal switched on and onto you. Well, that's a completely different story to one that's head down feeding, hasn't got a care in the world. It's its ears are folded down. It's not pricked up. It's not rotating, trying to hear a sound or something like that. It's you have to really, really judge the animal before you take the shot when you start pushing that envelope. Whereas 20 meters, it can be a little bit onto you. 9 times out of 10 with the bows we're using now, like most of the compounds, we're shooting above 250 feet per second.
Yeah.
That arrow is hitting that target in a second, 1.5 seconds kind of thing.
Yeah.
By the time they react, if you YouTube and look into it, like the Americans do a whole heap of studies on reaction time of deer and all of that stuff. They have to do that because they got 365 days of the year and they might only have a week or two to hunt. So
exactly.
They need to. Yeah, they don't have the luxury of trial and error that we do. Whereas, we can go out and we can have 3 or 4 attempts in one trip at shooting a deer. And then we can go back a fortnight later and do the exact same thing and learn from our mistakes.
They're done. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. They literally have that one chance. I mean, if they're mad keen, they can drive state to state and chase a few things. Again, I don't know enough about it to give an educated opinion on it, but
mate, the real question is, because you're really leading the crew on, you're holding them here in suspense. What happened with the buck? The frothers need to know.
I just walked in, put an arrow in him, and he fell over. That's so it was actually a really cool afternoon. So the whole hunt from start to finish, I wasn't meant to be there. We were hunting out Burkway at Byrock there. We were away from my brother's bucks party of all things. So pre-apologies to the meal plan and diet. I ruined that for that couple of days, but I'm back on track now, man. But we got 96 millimeters of rain out on the property we were hunting out there. And Western hunting in summer is based around hunting the water sources where the animals have to come to, because we're hunting 60, 70,000 acre properties, and you're trying to, it's needle in a haystack sort of thing. So out there, for these hotter hunt, like these summertime Western hunts, you're really relying on the animals coming to water. And normally where the water is, there's cleared areas so you can see them coming in. And I'm no good at sitting and waiting on dams. Never have been. I'm no good at tree stand hunting. I'm impatient. I want to make things happen. Anyone that's hunted with me knows I struggle to sit still for a couple of minutes. Doing this podcast, I've got to wave my hands around because I'm going insane. It's just a good thing you can't see it. So that ruined that, and we made the split decision halfway through where we're supposed to be out there. We just went, no, we'll go back. There's been some rain in the hills, but it seems to handle the water a lot better than that Western flat country. It just sits and it doesn't drain as well as the hilly country. Made the decision on a whim, went back. It was the first afternoon we got into camp. We pulled up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I just went, righto, I'm going to go do this walk. My brother's been tinkering with a recurve. He's never bow hunted in his life, and he's been playing with my other brother's recurve for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the fluky little bastard is good at it. His form is atrocious and unorthodox, but he hits where he aims every time. And I'm jealous of the little bastard, to be frank. But so we did that, got there, set the recurve up. I threw my bow on just as I'll take it just in case, but literally went out that afternoon to try and get him onto like a goat. Yeah. And then one of my other childhood friends and one of my brothers come up as well, and he hasn't. He's been in and out of bow hunting for a few years, but it's probably I did a hunt back with him in 2012, so that's how long he's been sort of in and out. And I've had one other hunt with him since then. And I was like, righto, you two, I'm going to take yous up and hopefully get yous onto a goat up here in the hill. And yeah, drove, walked up, because that had rain, it was stinky, humid and shite. Walking through friggin' chest high Scotch thistle at the moment. Anyone that hunts the hills over around the east coast knows how terrible that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we stalked in and found a mob. It was 4 billies and there's a half handy one there. And yeah, I'd sort of we got into about 50 off them, and I just said to my brother, righto, I'll follow you along and just sort of grab you if you're doing anything. And yeah, he snuck in like he's been doing it his whole life, got into 17 yards, drew back. The arrow actually came off the string when he drew back. It caught on his hat as he drew. So then he had to let down, recompose, put it back on, and like he didn't phase him one bit, clipped it all back on, flicked the hat off, draws back and shoots this thing, hits it. It's a tad low, but yeah, the goat went.
It's a decent billy. It's a decent billy. Hey, it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 27.5 inch, I think. So
yeah, far out.
Like that's an hour into his first ever bow hunt with the recurve that he's only been using for 3 weeks. Like
Jesus.
All the things that turn and lead to that is just, yeah. I do it and I practice. Cringe. Oh, I mean, I practiced for like 2 months before taking the recurve out, go for one walk. I'd lose all my arrows, don't hit a thing, and just throw the bow in the paddock and go, this, I'm out. I'm not doing this shit again. And in another 2 years, I'll regain the
drive to do it again.
That's it. The drive to do it again. So I'll have a hunt with Spinksy or Benny, and they'll walk around with their stick and string, and I'll be like, right, I've got to give this a try. And yeah, it'll probably be the same thing because I've on and off with that. Have it, shoot good, try to kill a critter, stuff up, and then it sits and collects dust for 2 years. And then the cycle starts again. It's a vicious cycle. I should learn, but I won't. So yeah, we got that. And then basically took some photos, kept moving around, got into another spot there, basically intercepted a few other goats feeding back up. And yeah, got onto a pretty handy billy there for Jake, like it's his PB. We just put ourselves, seen them feeding up, right place, right time, just camped up. 5 minutes later, they sort of fed into us and ranged it for him 32.5 meters, angling away. And he just pinwheeled this thing. Like you couldn't have gone up and stuck the arrow in a better position. Like just, top of the heart, bottom of the lungs, in behind the shoulder, like in behind, probably would have been about 4 ribs back.
Yeah.
Like 4 back from the short rib, come out at the point of the offside shoulder.
Yeah, wow.
Like perfect textbook shot. And I'm spewing I didn't have my big video camera because it would have been awesome just to watch that arrow just sort of sail and drop in and ended up, it was the biggest tracking job of my life, a whole 7 meters. Because it went down the little gully, up the gully, and then basically rolled back down to the bottom of the gully where it was. So dragged that up, got some photos and stuff like that. As I said, it's his PB. I think it's 29 or 29.5 inch. So yeah, good goat in this day and age. And he was stoked with it. So we did that. And I just, we continued on. I was just like, look, wherever there's goats, you boys can just keep going sort of shot for shot. Obviously, we're going to try and shoot better than what we've got.
Yeah.
He's both shot pretty handy goats at the start, so it might be a pretty quiet rest of the evening. I said, if we see a good velvet buck, you can stay behind. I'm going to go and have a crack. I want to do that. So we continued on. We got in. It was the bullshit afternoon because we'd walk like 250 meters, get onto another mob. There'd be a fairly half decent goat in it. We'd stalk around and do our thing. And we got in again, and the brother goes, I want to have another shot. I want to redeem. I want to have like a clean kill. I'm a bit more confident. So, we got onto another mob, another billy there that sort of just young billy, but no potential for anything good in the future. Like his horns were they were crap.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to be anything you'd want to take. So I go, right, have a crack at this fella here. And yeah, same thing. Walked in, I videoed it with my phone over his shoulder, and yeah, he proper pinwheeled this one with one of the Zots, the Ian Summers Signature Series broadheads that should be coming out. I hope if we can get this temper right. But yeah, he absolutely pinwheeled this thing. It would have been like a 12-meter shot or something, and the goat probably went 8 meters and piled up. So he was pretty stoked, and same thing, took photos, did that, moved on. Next, we're actually stalking a pretty handy billy goat. And as we're stalking along, I just managed to look down in the gully, and I seen a fella put me knockies up and just turned around and said, righto, undid me pack and went, "You're just staying here. I'm going to get that." And both of them didn't have binoculars, so they got me knockies, and they're looking, they're going, "Oh, wow, yeah." I'm like, don't tell me it's huge. I need to be in a clear state of mind here. I don't want to. And yeah, pretty much got wind right, got the shadows right. For a tip or something along the way, because I know you like the tips. Staying in the shadows is a good thing. Staying out of the shadows is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Your skin reflects sun, as you can see in the podcast here, the light off your forehead and your cheekbones and stuff like that.
Exactly.
That all shines. Wear a hat, that eliminates all that stuff there, but you've still got your hands, your hands on your binoculars when they come up. It all catches light. All of that stuff is heightened when you're in the direct sun. If you're in the shade, well, there's no sunlight to reflect off you. So awesome tip. Stay in the shade where you can. If you can have the sun behind you, so they're looking into the sun, that's even better. But the stars always don't align, and the wind and the sun and the shade is all in the right spot. But if it is, use everything you can to your advantage. But hunt with a bow and arrow, we need to put every single piece of everything that we can get on our side, you need to bloody use. So,
agreed.
And yeah, pretty much there's one big tree between me and him, and I just put that between us, worked my way down the hill fairly slowly. I'm a fan of a fast stalk on everything but deer.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the conditions are right, I'm still a fan of a fast stalk on deer. But yeah, bit of leaf litter and down a hill, loose rocks, tall grass, dry tall grass. It's so.
What's your method? What's your method for tall grass? Do you go long high steps, like up and over, or do you brush through just slowly?
So
depending on the grass, obviously, as well.
Depending on the grass, because the grass we have here is way different to the grass you guys get up there. You just get that real sort of stalky, long,
thick
grass,
stuff.
Whereas,
can be quite wide, right? Yeah, makes it quite a noise.
Fairly, that's right. Whereas the stuff we get, it's not as bad as that. It's more a lot of kikuyu and stuff like that, because a lot of the farmers have air sprayed or air seeded with a kikuyu grass or something similar. So we tend to get a maybe shin high, fairly green but soft and lush grass.
Yeah.
Another tip for people: green grass is soft, it's quiet to walk on, and it doesn't crunch under your feet. Dry shitty grass that's been in the sun every day, it's crunchy, it makes lots of noise. Again, shade is your friend. So this time I didn't have the luxury. It was all dry shit grass and loose rock. So I made my way down fairly carefully. I was probably 55 meters off where I'd last seen him, and he'd sort of, because I dropped down, I didn't have the advantage of seeing over him. So I'm glassing, and all of a sudden a spiky popped up between me and him, and I was like, "Oh, you bastard, you're going to ruin the day here for me." And I just sort of, waited for a second, watched what he was doing. He wasn't too fast. He was just feeding and carrying on and doing his thing. I ranged him. He's 38 meters. The other fella's 10 behind that. So I'm not too far off where I need to be, but that's 20 meters. A lot can happen in 20 meters. So I then had to put that tree between the spiker and where I last saw the buck and sort of make do with what I had. And yeah, if you've ever tried to use one thing to blind the eyesight of two, it doesn't work real well. So I sort of I could see the spiker, so I kept him behind the tree and sort of just slowly and hoped and prayed that the buck wasn't there looking at me. I I got away with it. I got lucky. I got down. The spike ended up feeding down into the creek. And then all of a sudden, the wind changed and he sort of took off up the opposite side bank. And I freaked out a little bit because I thought, oh, this is it, and checked the wind and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, it's still good for what I want to do, where he's going, the way he was feeding. It wasn't in my face now, but it wasn't cutting to him. It was sort of cutting across.
Yeah.
So I'd lost sight of both of them then, and I didn't really I couldn't tell where they were. I couldn't see it because there's a few trees on the opposite side, and I sort of just, my gut feeling said he was feeding down the hill. You haven't seen him run off back up the other stuff, so he's got to still be there. Just slowly make your way down, and that's what I did. Yeah, again, it was a fairly slow stalk for me. I was probably there for like 3 or 4 minutes, making, probably 10 meters every 2 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Just, I'd stop, I'd make a few meters, stop, glass, look around, listen, see if I could hear them breaking sticks or moving or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen. And I just kept doing that. I eventually got to a point in the creek where I saw the tip of an antler. Immediately pulled my rangefinder up, ranged a tree next to it. It was 36 meters.
Yeah.
So rangefinder back, and I just, from there going forward, I just counted my steps because he had his head behind a tree. So I made 10 steps, I presumed was around the 10-meter mark.
Mm-hmm.
Got there, I could just see him, arrow on, I come to full draw, and then he took another step forward and went completely behind the tree. And the spiky come out, so I couldn't actually let down straight away either. So I'm stuck at full draw for the duration of the spiky moving down through the creek and coming up and sort of, putting his head behind something or putting his head down so I could have a shot. That happened, all good. He come up behind the buck. The buck sort of gave him a little, a warn and piss off, half a grunt sort of thing. And then he took, would have been a quick sort of 10 meter dash or so, and then turned and started to feed back towards me.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point I was like, he's gone 10 the other way. So I'm guessing him at about 32 meters, and I'm in the open now, just standing there with a couple of trees in the shadows. That's the whole cover that I've got at the moment.
Yeah.
So I can't go back and range find. I've literally just got the bow up in front of my face, hand on the release like that, and I'm sort of just put the bow in front of my face to break my face up.
Yeah.
And he fed in towards me, and he put his head down. It might have been like a thistle bush or something like that. And I was pretty confident that he's going to keep walking in. I picked him for probably 26, 27 meters sort of thing.
Yeah.
Drew back and started to get sort of settled, to have a shot, just waiting for him to feed. And ideally, he was quartering onto me, so I wanted his head to turn away again, like away from the quartering of his body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So that had opened his chest right up. That didn't happen. The spiky come over and sort of give him a nudge. He turned around, let out a full proper croak, hit him with his antlers and chased him back into the creek where they first were. Now, in all that time, I'd sort of taken 5 or 6 steps forward, just edging forward slowly. So let down, repositioned my feet to where the creek was. And in all of that, the wind had changed again. I could feel it sort of on the back of my neck. And I sort of thought, righto, the wind's fucked this on me. I'm done.
Yeah.
But he went down and stopped where he first stopped. And I just did the quick calculation in my head. He was 26. I've taken about 5 or 6 steps. He's around 20, drawn back, and just I was slowly following him. And as soon as he stopped, I just sped up the execution of my shot. And hit him just behind the shoulder on the entry side, and ended up lodging in the offside shoulder. Watched him go down the creek, up the hill, maybe 15 meters.
Yeah, wow.
And then, his legs give out and he rolled back down the hill. So he ended up being like 18 meters from where I was standing is where he ended up dying. And he was like 15, 16 meters from where I'd hit him to where he ended up.
Yeah.
And so, it was
So, like on a critter like that, for instance, what's your go-to shot? Like, if you could pick your shot every time, would you go heart? Would you go lung? Would you go heart lung? Like, what's your goal?
2 seconds. Talking so much, I got to wet the whistle. Dry out, I become croaky like Darren Lockyer.
Nah, mate, no.
My favorite shot is just front leg, 1/3 the way up. If I can, quartering away and coming in, because a broadside shot gives you a real good window, and it's awesome because everything you see and all the targets you shoot are broadside, but it doesn't give you the full picture of their vitals, because part of their heart is tucked in behind the bone, and some of their lung is tucked in behind their shoulder and stuff like that. So if you can imagine that, by turning it quartering away, you take out all of that bone that potentially could become an issue when you're shooting. If you're a little bit off on your shot, they react a bit, any of that stuff there, you might end up hitting bone before you hit the good stuff. And that could be the difference between finding a critter and losing a critter. So by that quartering away, it opens all of that up, and the only bones you have to contend with are rib bones.
Yeah.
And on smaller game, deer, goats, pigs, all of that stuff, their rib bones, I can tell you, break rib bones like nothing else. And all the other broadheads I've shot in years gone by are capable of breaking rib bones.
Yeah.
So shoulder blades and leg bones and femur bones and that knuckle and stuff, that is a different story. Poundage, your bow, everything comes into play. No two shots are ever the same in bow hunting.
Yeah, definitely.
But for me, angling away 1/3 of the way up the body is where I'm at. If it's broadside, I'm in line with that shoulder. I'm hoping that the front leg is stepped forward, because again, that's just opening that up.
Yeah.
It's all about maximizing the effectiveness of increasing the area for the most forgiveness of your shot. So everything I do with archery is all about like forgiveness. The reason I shoot a slightly lighter arrow than what everyone would deem is, the heavy FOC, or that 18-20% FOC it's good if you hit the target, but if you can't hit the target, what's the point? Whereas
so you go lighter for more speed.
Yeah, I'm not fussed about speed, but trajectory and speed go hand in hand. So I'm not chasing speed directly, but a result of a flatter trajectory, that's what I want. So and I'm not stupidly light. Like my setup is 495.
Okay.
500 grains.
Yeah.
So it's not a super light arrow. It's not a super heavy arrow. It's just a good medium. Like I'm only 28.5-inch draw, so I don't have the luxury of getting extra feet per second out of a long draw bow and all of that jazz. I'm pretty bog standard archer. I'm a pretty bog standard shot. I'm definitely not going to the Olympics to represent Australia for target archery. That's a given. We all know that. But just having that forgiving setup and being confident in it. And when I drew back and had that deer there, I was near thinking about the taxidermy bill before I'd even released the shot. That's sort of how happy and confident I was on it. And that's not a good thing to do. That I can tell you that that is not the mindset to have, and don't do it.
I've definitely done that and lost a lot.
I've stuffed up more than I care to remember. I try and turn that stuff off, but I've changed my release aid and things like that to it's a tension. It's a proper resistance or tension activated release aid, and that's probably saved me. At one point there, I was nearly ready to give archery up because I just couldn't. The target panic just literally ruined my.
Yeah. Wow.
I reckon I was 2 or 3 more stuff shots on critters away from sort of walking away and at a good 12-month break.
Yeah.
And I just Ian said, I did a whole heap of stuff with Ian, and because I'm impatient, like you can do blind shooting and all that stuff. And I did that. And in the first night, I probably shot 150 arrows, and I sent him like a picture of a grouping. And he goes, your sight's back on. I went, yep. He goes, told you it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks of shooting without a sight to get the bow feeling natural and not worrying about aim. And then we'd work on it. I was like, oh, I'm just too impatient for that. And he goes, right, if you're not going to do that, get a proper resistance release aid, and that might be the thing that gets you across the line.
Yeah.
And that one single item has literally saved bow hunting for me.
That's unreal.
Like it is that awesome. Yeah. It just, your confidence goes through the roof because you can't rush a shot. You can't punch the trigger.
I'm looking to get one because every archer that I've talked to that's got one says how better it makes them as an archer.
Oh, yeah. If anyone's like suffering, and I'd do it now. If anyone that I know is like a little bit on the TP, I go, bite the bullet, go and spend the money, buy a proper resistance release aid, whether it be like a hinge, like a hand-mounted type one, not a hinge, I should say, but a hand-mounted one, or one that goes a wrist strap. There's a few options in the wrist strap as well. Yeah. And that literally could be the difference between, continuing archery and giving it up, because it's chalk and cheese. My confidence now and the amount of shots that I'm probably about 95%, what would you say, shot to like kill ratio. Whereas when my target panic was terrible, some days I'd miss a Reinhardt at 20 meters.
Yeah.
That's how shit it was. So
that's intense.
And now I can't shoot 2 arrows at the Reinhardt at the same time with broadheads. Otherwise I end up losing an arrow. So
really quickly before we dive too deep down another rabbit hole, I want to talk about another rabbit hole, which is the sights. I mean, you were using the Option Archery sight for a while. And I believe you got yourself a Garmin. Has that come through yet?
I've got it. I'm still running the Option sight.
Okay, yeah. I figured that was the case because you were talking about pins and obviously doing your ranging and whatever. So when do you run it with the single pin and flip your casing open all the time, or do you have it kind of, you've got your casing shut and you run? I
have casing closed, and I run 20, 40, and 50 meters. Although my 50 pin, because it's a 4-pin sight, the 50 pin isn't actually dialed in. It's all the way down, out of the way. It's not actually doing anything. It's literally just a spare pin. If I bust one or something, I can do it.
And use it. Yeah.
And then the 30 is my sliding pin, but I use it when it's closed as my 30. So I have 20, 30, 40 closed as I'm walking around the bush all the time.
So when that deer is moving,
that's my go-to, because if I'm...
Sorry, go on.
I'm using, so for that there, my sight's closed. I'm not using a single pin.
Yeah.
Because I know that, if I'm at 20 and he busts me and balks out, there's a pretty good chance he's going to pull up at around 30. Yeah. And if everything's good, I may get a chance to have a shot. I mean, if he busts out at 30 and I'm not at full draw, well, that's not happening. See you later. Bye-bye. Yeah. But if I'm already at full draw, that's a whole heap of movement that he doesn't notice. He's just something spooked in, whether it's sound, a sight, a slight whiff or something like that. If it's a smell, they normally just run and there's no looking.
Yeah, there's no looking back.
If it's a funny sound or a funny sight, they'll go out, and as a rule of thumb, don't use this as defined mathematics, but if they're around 20, they'll normally run out and stop at about 30.
Oh man, tenfold. Yeah, I've seen that. 30. I've seen that many times. Like I literally looked deer in the eye, like face to face. They were 10 meters away from me, probably three hinds, and they ran up 30 meters from me. They were, literally 10 meters. The only reason why they ran a little bit further, I reckon, is because they had to get back up out of the creek. Blew me away.
Yeah, but it seems to be around 30 meters. So if you're already at full draw and they've spooked because, there's a little sound funny or something wasn't quite right and they spooked, they're not super alarmed, and you're already at full draw, there's a good chance you'll get a shot. If they're angling away, even better. In that circumstance, if they're angling on or front on, that's all over. I'm not taking the shot.
Yeah.
But if they're 30 meters broadside and they're not super twitchy, like if they're, moving their head around, trying to work out where the friggin' hell that funny thing was that just spooked them,
yeah,
they're not pinpointed to my location, which means, they're going to be a little bit more highly strung. So they'll probably react differently to the shot. But it's not as if they're standing there staring me down, looking through my soul. They're still going, what the hell was that?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Given the right situation, I'd be more than happy with letting an arrow go.
Mm-hmm.
If it's your first bow hunt and that's how it all pans out, I wouldn't recommend it.
No,
but I'm like 11, 12 years of bow hunting and do it nearly religiously. So I've spent a lot of time in the bush, a lot of different situations with deer, and I'd like to think I know when to shoot and when not to shoot. And to date, I've only really stuffed up one on an alert on a deer that I didn't think was alert that was alert.
Yeah.
And luckily, it was a complete miss. I didn't stuff it up. Like, don't get me wrong, I've shot deer and hit them in the wrong spots and had to follow them and go nights without finding them and stuff like that. And that shit sucks.
That sucks.
10 times more than missing. And you'll regret that shot.
A lot of lessons from that too, though, right?
Oh, you do, and you learn, and it makes you think the next time around that situation or a similar situation unfolds, you think twice about it and you go, no, last time this didn't work out right. I know how this finishes. I'm not going to do it.
I think it develops your boundaries better, right? Like it lets you know what you're capable of, what you're not capable of, and in situations when not to do things, which is great as well. Unfortunately, you have to go through a situation like that for it to happen, but it really is good for setting some clear boundaries for yourself.
Oh, 110%. That failure is the nastiest feature you'll have.
Yeah.
But it's also one that sticks in your mind. You can't forget it.
Yeah.
And it's even worse if it's on like the critter of a lifetime or something like that. Just putting it in a perspective, if you rush that shot and stuff it up and hit the animal wrong, you're probably never it's not that you're never going to find it, but your chances of finding it are heaps less. Whereas if you don't take the shot, walk away, leave the situation, come back again the next day or the next week or the next trip, you might get onto that exact same critter again, put yourself in a better spot, have a much better opportunity, I suppose, would be the thing. And if you stuff it the first time around, you'll never have that opportunity again.
No, exactly.
So the arrows you release that wound an animal or hit wrong, you're going to regret way more than the arrow that you never released.
Yeah.
The what ifs aren't going to hurt you as much as, knowing that you've shot something wrong. You go pick your arrow up, it's got all guts and goop over it. That big bloop sound when you hit, you just it sucks.
Oh, yeah.
If you've done enough bow hunting, you've done it yourself or you've seen someone do it,
I did it on a goat once and it was horrible. It was not nice.
Yeah, goats are probably one of the worst to get bad shots on too because they cry and that noise just
goes through you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It cuts through you like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah, dude. So the other day I went and visited a new mate, Sean from Dog and Gun Coffee. I had no idea, but he's actually located up here in Brizzy. So we got talking on Instagram, and then I went around and saw him. And good coffee for anyone who wants to give it a try. Definitely, I would really recommend the preloaded, like your drip filters, which you're seeing probably a lot of it on your socials anyway. If you're on socials, where it's literally like it's pre-packeted in kind of like a tea bag. You pour the hot water over the coffee and it drips through into your cup. Really good for obviously hunters or campers, people who are going out who don't have access to necessarily like a proper espresso machine but still want good coffee. I would definitely recommend grabbing yourself some of that. But he had some freshly very sharp Kayugas laying on his bench as I got in, and he was just trying to figure out the bleeder blades. And so we sat there and kind of played with them together and set them up. And at first he thought that he needed some pliers or something to work it out properly. And I just kept fidgeting. I'm like, oh no, it's actually super simple. Just chuck those bleeders in. So what I thought would be cool is if we could, for those who are watching along on video, just take them through it, but also just vocalize as much as we can for those who are listening. And why the introduction of the bleeder blade compared to just keeping the old Kayugas as a two blade essentially.
Righto. So we'll do the latter first. And
yeah, definitely.
The reason for it is, as a 2-blade, it still works, it still kills, it still does all of that. But because of that single bevel design rotation, the way that it cuts, it actually creates the cut and it does a spherical wound channel.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates like a drilling action and a circle as it goes through the target. Anyone that's shot them and pulled them out of a target knows how much of a pain in the ass they are.
Yeah.
Just think that's what it does to the inside of an animal. If it messes your target up, it messes the animal up too. So pros and cons.
Yeah.
But what we found was you could shoot critters and absolutely pinwheel them, but there wasn't a good blood trail to follow.
Mm.
What we sort of tested, you know, I can't think of the word here. Basically, we myth busted it and proved the theory that, these animals were getting pinwheeled and the shot was perfect.
Yeah.
What was happening was that skin was just splitting and then folding back on itself.
Yeah.
So they were bleeding out, but it was bleeding internally.
Yeah, okay.
So you think of an animal like a pig that's got a fatty sort of a hide on it and a fighting pad and all of that. It opens, but it seals back up. So when you find the critter, awesome if the grass is short and you can watch the critter fall over and it only goes 20, 30 yards and piles up, happy days. But if it goes into like long tunnely grass or lignum or like a really blackberry choked gully or something like that, makes it really hard to follow the blood trail when it's not blooded out. It's on the job, it's still killing, but it wasn't bleeding.
Yeah.
That was the problem. It was bleeding, but it wasn't leaving a blood trail for us to follow. So we tinkered with a few different things and actually cut and milled and I milled a few up at work and broke thousands of dollars worth of cutters doing it. And a good mate, Shannon Postel, he made up a couple of little blades for us to actually try. I cut the slots and he made some blades up to suit, and we did some testing and stuff like that, and the results were pretty good. So we went, righto, if we can just, instead of it just being a single cut that way, we've now created the cut with that little side on it, so the wound can't actually heal back up. There's always that flappy.
Wow. Yeah.
Cut. And since doing that, man, I have followed some red carpets. Like it's the Logie's effect. So it just opens them up because that wound physically cannot seal now. That's why like 3-blade broadheads and stuff are so popular, because a 2-blade can't they just can seal back together. Whereas a 3-blade, you can't close that up because it's 3 different flaps of skin. Well, with this bleeder option, it now makes that 4 flaps of skin. It's also cutting a bit extra. It does bugger all to penetration. We had the Lusk archery guy shoot the gelatine blocks or the ballistic gel.
Yeah.
And we had like 9 inches of peno with a 2-blade and 8.5 inches of peno with a bleeder. So we're talking about much difference.
And what about the accuracy? Like in regards to does it change anything?
No, so all it does, it adds weight. So the Gen 2 is based around, if you buy a 125, it's 125 grains as a 2-blade broadhead. When you add the bleeder, you're adding an additional 12 grains, I think.
Okay.
Because with the bleeder, you have a little shock collar on the back.
Yeah.
So what that shock collar does, if you hit something really hard, it prevents the bleeder coming back and actually cutting the front of your carbon.
Yeah.
That washer it's a shock. It absorbs that impact shock.
Yeah. So, okay.
Because that bleeder goes in and it can move backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
When you tighten it up, you're actually pushing it forwards. So when it loads up, it comes backwards and loads up on the shock collar.
Yeah, gotcha.
So if you're using an arrow with an outsert type system, it's not as crucial. Still recommended, but it's not as crucial. Whereas if you're using like an Eastern hit or something like that, where it's actually the carbon of the arrow is what comes up hard against the back of the broadhead, yeah, you will break a lot of arrows.
Yeah, definitely.
You need the shot collar, and that's why we supply it, and that's why we factor it into the weight. It's part of the design. We're not just putting them there for pretty.
So if you were to use it if you had outserts, for instance, and you were to use it without the shot collar, what weight is that then with just the bleeder blade?
So the little washer is 4 grains. So if shooting it as a 125, you put 14 on it, it brings it back to like say a 130 grain, around that, 130, 135, 132, yeah, something around there.
Yeah.
So for the sake of 4 grains, put the bloody washer on.
Yeah.
It's going to save your heartache, because even then it busts the front of the collars up. Like those collars on the arrows aren't designed as a shot collar like these stainless steel rings are.
Yeah.
So they're, aluminium that just bites in, and then when you go to tighten it up next time, you end up with a little indent. So as you're tightening it, it goes click, click, and it wants to catch on it, and use the washer. It's there for a reason. Definitely.
And so what about your thin, your smaller blades versus your wide blades you've just released?
Yeah, so the wide blades are a 20 grains. The actual blade is 20 grains plus the washer's 4.
Yeah.
So round terms, we're calling it 25 grains. So you shoot a 125, you put that in, you actually turn it into a 150.
So you're better off, for instance, and I don't know if this is right, correct me if I'm wrong, if you shoot 125s usually, you're best to get that at 100 grains with the wide and just use that instead.
And that'll give you a 125. But keeping in mind with that, the wide cut bleeder, it turns the broadhead into a 4-blade broadhead. It's not just a bleeder. It's turning it into a 4-blade. So with the addition of that, because it's 1 inch on its own.
Fuck. Yeah, wow.
So that wide cut bleeder is actually wider than other broadheads on the market, other 2-blade broadheads on the market, just by itself. That's the bleeder alone.
Yeah.
So your 100, 125, and 150 pilot cut has a 30 mil wide cut on it. That's the widest point of the broadhead when it cuts. So it leaves a 30 mil hole. You put another 25, so that's 55 millimeters, or for our American friends, that's 2 1/8 inch.
Yeah, wow.
That's more than some expandables have.
Yeah.
So we're talking about massive Holes. It's really like hitting them with an axe. It's a massive hole it creates. In testing these, I shot a couple of goats, and they didn't go, like, I think 11 meters was the furthest one went. So
it's insane.
But in saying that too, I shot my best boar to date, a big ginger mountain boar, earlier this year.
What you're talking about?
Winter, with a 100 grain wide cut on an angling away shot, and it absolutely pinwheeled him. It went through, locked up on his offside shoulder, and he went 18 meters.
Yeah, wow.
And that's going through, all that skin and that shit on the big boar, the ribs, all through the vitals, locked up on the offside shoulder. So it's got its pros and cons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it puts serious holes in things. So we'll do this little video of how that works now, and I can show you the difference.
So what about for you, for sighting them in, for instance? Like, what have you been doing for that?
I haven't been doing a lot. I haven't been doing a lot different. Yeah, like shooting targets. Obviously, if your bow's tuned well,
you don't have to shoot it that many times.
It's not going to make a lot of difference. You might be, an inch to the left or an inch to the right. Every broadhead, like, they are field point accurate, and we shoot these things field point and a broadhead through the hooter shooter, which is the mechanical thing. So we've shot it, and we know that they're field point accurate if the bow is correct. 9 times out of 10, it's the archer that's letting the whole part of this down. For myself, I know the archer is the weak point in my shooting game. Yeah, because
I think in most people's game, right?
That's right, man. That's it. The bow is mechanical. It does the same thing time and time again. If you put your face on it wrong, you lean too much on the string with your nose, you put too much pressure here, you jerk the shot, you have too much sitting on your face and the string's all like pushed up against here. There's so many things. You torque the bow, the bow is a mechanical thing. It goes back to a set point, it releases and it closes to the set point. It does the same thing day in, day out. It's the human interaction or the human manipulation, which is what changes it and what affects it. So for myself, I don't have to change my sighting in point. It might be, a half inch left or right.
I was just thinking because I was thinking selfishly because my Reinhardt's starting to rip to shreds, to be honest. And so it's like, oh, how many more shots do I have at it before it shoots through every time?
So back before I had a house and I had all these other debts to pay, I just used to buy targets left, right, and center. And I was like, I hunt with broadheads. I'm only ever shooting broadheads at a target.
Yeah.
Since buying a house, I shoot field points way more.
Yeah.
To work for this, because they're weird weights, like the 150, like we said, the 125, because we'll use that as the example because that's what most people shoot.
Yeah.
We put the bleeders and stuff into it, and it ends up being, I think, 136, 138 grains.
Yeah.
There's 4 parts in it, so a little bit of tolerance here and there, you're going to get a bit of variation. And in all honesty, you're not going to notice 5-10 grains difference in your setup out to 30, 40 yards. Your shooting ability will most likely hinder it unless you're like an Olympic class archer.
Yeah.
And then you already know this, you'll be able to sight your bow back in and there's no problems. We'll keep moving forward. We've made field points to match that weight and the length as well. So it ties in with the flight characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got that weight, the broadhead is, I think it's 32 mil out the front. Like that's the length of it.
Yeah.
Or it might be a little bit more actually. It might be 34 mil. But the field points are the exact same length as the broadhead. So each weight changes. Obviously, the 175 is longer, so that field point is longer. It marries up to the same length and the same sort of weight as the broadhead in conjunction with the way there's more weight at the back and at the front.
Yeah.
So they're a long, skinny, weird field point. I should have had one here to show you, and I can grab one. It won't take me too long. I'll do that in a second when we do this showing and viewing.
Yeah, perfect.
Here. But yeah, we've done that to match up to that for the guys that want to shoot that but don't want to chew the shit out of their target.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we've gone down that avenue. So they work bloody awesome.
Yeah, I love it. It's good.
We're shooting them yesterday afternoon, actually we got a video now, like a little promo video up on the Instagram and the Facebook page now with it.
Has it gone up? It's gone live.
Yeah, the little promo video, and the broadheads are all back up in stock now. We've got 100s, 125s, 150s, 175s in stock in the Gen 2 pilot cut range, and then all of the old school is in stock as well.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, you're looking for it now, are you?
Yeah, I'm looking for your little video right now.
Well, do that for 2 seconds. I'm just going to grab these field points from behind me.
Yeah, go for it, man. Yeah, okay. So looking at the longer field points, they remind me actually of like jungle field tips, because it's like the long cone like point. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
just saying about the longer field tips. Yeah, just had it look quite different.
Yeah, so what it does, it marries up to the flight characteristics. So I'm going to pull this screen down and tell me if it works better on the cardboard or on the desk.
No, cardboard's going to be perfect. Yeah.
Righto. So the idea with that is we've married up the lengths to be the same.
Yeah.
So from the back here to the tip is the same as this.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the skinny at the front and obviously thicker at the back. Skinny at the front, thicker at the back. There's more weight at the back. So the idea is for this to actually mimic the weight and everything to give you the closest flight characteristics possible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So that's the field points, and they're available like 100, 125, 150, and 175.
Uh-huh.
They're all done to suit. So, and then that's the wide cut bleeder.
Yeah.
So when you put the wide cut bleeder next to the broadhead, it's nearly the same size.
The bleeders they're quite interesting, right? Because they're almost like a diamond with it's almost like a half moon cut out on each side of it, just so it can sit in place properly in the broadhead.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be hard, but we had some dramas in the past. We've redesigned this tip, and we've actually made the bleeders now single bevel to aid in penetration. But we used to have a slightly different tip design, and it was a little bit weak, and we had a drama with the tips breaking out. At the end of the day, they're a replaceable bleeder. That if you get more than one shot out of them, awesome. And I can tell you, you will get more than one shot out of them if you're not hitting rocks and sticks and all the nasty things or bones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this new V-tip design, it's nearly 50% more meat in that tip section.
Yeah.
So how these go in for the guys that are sort of not knowing, and is that clear enough on there? I can't see because the screen's down.
Yeah.
So basically the back goes in, the front locates in, and the back just comes across and lines up.
Yeah.
And then your washer goes on the back. If I can get the washer on, there we go. They are a tight fit.
Yeah.
It's meant to be tight. It's not meant to be loose. And basically that washer goes, I'll end up cutting myself here on these. We actually have a, yeah.
I was gonna say, must have got like a pretty tight one because yeah, the ones I did with Sean they moved in a lot easier with that.
It's just because we're on video.
Yeah, of course. The shakes are happening. Yeah, the face is going red.
Oh man, it's a good thing you can't see my face. But basically, that's it there. So it's got two on the back of the bleeder. There's two little tabs there. Yeah. That's what the shock washer locates on there at the back.
Yeah.
At the front, there's that V that locates into there's basically a receptor for that in the broadhead, which that slots into, and then the back comes up and locks onto that.
Yeah.
So the other thing we've redone with these single bevels is we've actually made the back a bit longer, and the wide cuts, it's more proficient or more noticeable because the wide cuts actually fit all of the broadheads. So the one wide cut bleeder will fit the 100, the 125, the 150, and the 175.
Yeah.
Whereas the actual standard bleeder that goes with them, it's 100 and 125, and then 175 and 150. That gap's not as much, but we've designed it with this little gap at the back. We had issues, and people would say they'd rattle, and because we've got all these different moving parts going together, something had to give. So we've designed it now with this little gap at the back to stop the rattle. And in all the testing we've done, we haven't found an issue with it. Like, there's probably been 100 critters shot with these and tested before we've even sent them out for anyone to use. But yeah, if you do that little gap at the back, don't stress. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. If you're a real pedantic type person, you can file them down. If you file too much off, they will rattle and they will annoy the crap out of you.
So they're freaking sick. I really like them. In regards to like putting broadheads into your hunting arrows, I've heard of different people gluing them in. Some people using like a hot wax or a wax to wrap around it. Some people putting cotton in around the thread. Are you doing anything along the lines of that with your regular hunting arrows? What's your go-to for that?
I use string wax.
Yeah,
because it's always in the bow case. It's always easy to do. And what that does, it acts a little bit like a thread locker. So the vibrations, and while things are moving, obviously you're walking around the hills all day, stuff moves. When you shoot in the target, obviously you have to make sure things are tight. When you pull it out, you're pulling it counterclockwise. So essentially you're doing an undoing motion. So every time you pull it out, you need to make sure it's tight.
Yeah.
Tight is good. Make sure it is tight, because if it is loose, because it's got that spherical cut and the design of the two different blade angles, it loads up a lot. So if you've got a loose arrow that is, I'll use my arrows for example, I'm shooting 494, we'll say 500 grains to make things simple. And my arrow weight is 375 grains and my broadhead's 125.
Yeah.
I've got 375 grains coming in and turning and locking up on 125 grains. The bigger force wins, and it ends up tightening up really quickly, and it wants to pop that thread because it's got to go somewhere. Every force has an opposite reaction that is identical. So that if your head is loose, that force is going to transfer through the arrow. It's going to tighten up, and then it's going to want to either pop, or it's going to want to make something rotate quicker than the other.
Yeah.
The heavier weight is always going to win. So, yeah.
So you get broadhead snapping and stuff, right?
Yeah, if you shoot loose broadheads, you will more than likely, might not happen the first time, might not happen the second time, but eventually you keep wearing, and wearing, it will break. They're not a drill tip. They're not a jackhammer tip. They're not designed to be impacted and smashed and loaded up. They're designed to be screwed in tight against the arrow and not actually load up.
Yeah. And so with putting wax in, they're still obviously removable. They're not stuck there forever. You can do it quite easily still.
You can undo it. Like if you put Loctite, like a proper thread locker on it, then you lock it in there for forever.
Yeah.
And the other good thing with the wax is it actually creates like a little seal on the thread. So when you shoot through an animal, when you undo it all, you don't get that blood inside the arrow.
Yeah.
I've done it heaps. You'll shoot something, put the arrow back in the quiver, you take it home, you'll go to change it out for a field point later, you undo it and you just go, whoa. And you'd like, I shot that goat with it far out. And by putting the wax on it, you alleviate that because it creates that seal and stops that going inside.
Yeah.
Doesn't do the same for the knock. If the knock's not sealed on the end, it just presses in. So if that's inside the critter, you might end up with a stinky arrow. But that string wax is, you've got it, it's on hand, it should be in your bow case or near your bow. Everyone that's shooting a compound or a recurve will have string wax or should have string wax. So it's not like you got to go out and buy something extra or special.
Yeah.
Good practice to wax your strings. Not every single day, but before, after hunts and stuff like that, it is good to maintain.
Man, still to this day, I've never waxed my strings. That's horrible to say, maybe.
I'm pretty guilty of not doing it as much as I should, and Ian ups me all the bloody time about it. But
I actually had a pro shooter on. He shoots for Prime, and he disagrees with waxing strings.
But his theory is it's different because he's not hunting. He's not taking it into dirt.
That's why I had thought as well. Yeah.
He's shooting in a clean environment. He's shooting at a range. Or look, I'm no string expert. I don't build strings. I don't do all of that. You'd have to talk to someone that's proficient at it. But
actual string maker on. Hey, it's probably a good place to go.
So, but the idea of the wax, my understanding of it is just to give you that little protective coating. It stops the moisture absorbing in. It stops the dirt and all the shit getting in, and it's just to protect your strings, stops them fraying. Once they fray, they start to deteriorate. And then once one weak link goes, it just continues the cycle. So I'm pretty bad for it, but I replace my strings every 12 months, religiously. So and I always carry a spare set of strings with me. Don't always have a bow press handy, but if I'm away hunting and I do a string or something like that, find someone close. If you've got a string, you're probably a better chance of finding someone with a bow press than finding someone with a set of strings for your bow and a bow press.
Exactly. Yeah, great. So, well, man, I think that's awesome. I think that's a really cool kind of insight into what you guys have done and what you're doing. I feel like right now it's a perfect time. If you're listening to this, especially early on, it's a good time to go and buy, because in the past they've gone quickly, and hopefully you said that you have kind of worked towards a plan around that a little bit more right now. Is that correct, Grant?
Yeah, we've nearly tripled what our normal stock is.
Yeah.
But in saying that, we've sold out the stock that we thought would last a month going off previous sales. We've sold that in 24 hours, 48-hour windows. So it's, I get in while they're there, because I'd like to think they'd last, and we've planned it so they do last. But nothing's certain in this world. Especially now, the head's becoming a bit more popular in America, and those guys are falling in love with it. Like, we're getting guys, we're doing 4 or 5 orders every day to the States.
It's awesome.
And those guys, some of them are getting together with buddies and stuff and buying, well, I presume with buddies, because they're buying 3 or 4 or 5 packets at a time, sort of thing, unless they're just mad keen hunters. And I don't know, want broadheads for the rest of their life. I don't really know, but it's awesome and we appreciate it. Like, they're thankful for everyone that buys the product and supports it. We're humbled, we're grateful and appreciative because it's, this is just, at the moment, it's just a sort of a side business, and it more so started as a hobby for us more than anything. And we've taken off. It seems to have gained a fair bit of traction, and it's, we've put our heart and souls into these things and spent a lot of time developing it, a lot of effort, a lot of money to get them where they are. And we're super happy and super proud of what we've done, and the results are sort of speaking for themselves. We're getting photos of stuff people are knocking over nearly every day. So
it's unreal. Now I think I can definitely be a testament to that for you guys. Like, just after talking to you for the last year, pretty much, like, it's incredible each time to hear the different tests that you guys are going through. It's pretty much like a resilient project. Like, each little thing that comes up, you have to say, okay, well, we're going to retest, we're going to change that, we need to readjust this. And I think really just even the proof of like the shock collars that you guys have put in, like that's a big kind of, okay, well, these guys have actually really thought about the product that they're releasing. They're not just trying to drop a product so people come and buy something. It's actually like, hey, we give a fuck about our product. We give a stuff about our actual people who are buying the product. So I think it's, I think it kind of speaks loudly enough for itself in that factor that you guys are always improving the products as well.
Well, we had a guy from New Zealand the other day with 100 grain broadhead, broke it, and we looked back at it, and we've already started redesigning how we can actually make that a little bit better, because we've seen that particular break a couple of times when they've hit like the offside shoulder and the arrow's locked up. And like, in saying that, I said before, they're not a drill tip. They're not designed to be used, thousands and smashed and bashed, and you can't hit them with a hammer. They're not bomb proof. They're designed to kill animals and go through flesh and bone and do their job. If you're wedging them up in shoulder blades and things like that, if your arrow is breaking, or if you're, deforming your insert or snapping an arrow in half or something like that, and the broadhead breaks, unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast. Nothing is infinite. It never lasts forever. And like, obviously, the smaller the broadhead, the less meat there is. The 100 is our lightest broadhead. And as I say to people, you have to take that material away to make it 100 grains. So it has less material than the 125. The 125 has less than the 150, and vice versa for the 175. The 175 is our beefcake. That thing is, I actually think you could put that in a jackhammer and use it, and the jackhammer would break before it does. But I don't think you could do that with the 100. As they get heavier in weight, they become more rigid, more resilient, and stronger, because obviously we've been able to put more meat into it. But I think we've had 3 complaints with from the last 3 batches, 100 grains, and we've seen the same point they break at. So we've already started working on that, and that'll be implemented into our next batch. So moving forward, we're always trying to make it better, and if we can make it better, we will. Our belief, and I speak on my own behalf and Matt and Ian, we're never going to be 100% satisfied with the product. We're always going to drive. We can be 99.9% happy with it, but there's always that little bit where it could be improved. And we're always going to strive for that. Like, we've already, pilot cuts, the Gen 2s, we've already done the bleeder modification to make them a bit beefier and a bit stronger. I mean, we're selling spare bleeders. If we were smart businessmen, we would have just kept them the same and kept selling more bleeders, but we want that, the most reliable and resilient product we can, because what you guys buy and get in the packet from us is the exact same stuff we're putting on our arrows when we're going on the hunts of a lifetime, when we're chasing that once in a lifetime trophy. We are using the exact same gear as you. It's not smoke and mirrors. We're not using our own special batches or anything like that. It's literally what I get in my packet when I shoot them is what you're getting in your packet when you shoot them.
Yeah.
So it's a passion. The Zots, we've been at 99% for longer than I care to think. And yeah, they are good enough to come to the market, and we've tested them against some of the competitors, and we know they will outperform where they're at already, but we're not satisfied with that product.
Yeah.
We're still using it and testing it, and it's still working and it's still knocking critters over, but it's not as good as we know we can make it. So it's back to the grindstone once more. And yeah.
Oh, well, we'll just have to do another podcast when that one comes out.
Yeah. Well, that'll be, we better do that one with Ian, because the Zot is his baby. Oh, it's his baby. He, like the pilot cut is my little sweet child of love child. The Zot is his sweet love child times 10.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I got to run. I've got to jump on something else. So, yeah, thank you very much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it. And I think really anyone should jump across to Kayuga and check them out. Like, if you haven't used them before, I think it's a good little investment for your hunting career.
I would definitely agree. Yeah. I don't only have to say that because it's my product, but yeah, I shoot it. I believe in it. If I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't let it out there for someone else to use. So, yeah. And we're always happy to help. If you've got questions about the heads, about arrow setups, all that stuff there, between the three of us, there's a wealth of knowledge, with Matt and Ian guiding up north for nearly half the year. They get to see probably the amount of critters taken most people would in a lifetime. They see that in one season. And wolf's coming up to, I don't know, it'd have to be 30, 40 years of going up the Cape and doing all of that. And Matt, it'd have to be near 10 for him. So there's a wealth of knowledge and experience and actual real world, like testing and real world experience in arrow setups, broadheads, why we do this. There's every single thing in the broadhead is done for a reason. It's not just thrown on because it looks cool, or it's, it'll catch the eyes. It'll get traction on the gram.
Yeah, definitely. All righty, dude. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it, dude. I appreciate your time. It's been good.
No worries, man. Well, hopefully, again, someone got something out of this, and hopefully you've learned something. And yeah, if you've got questions, just hit me up. I'm always happy to help wherever I can, however I can.
It's
within reason.
At Grant_Rand.
Yeah, man. You can hit me up there on Instagram, or the Facebook is the same, Grant Rand. And again, the business, Kayuga Broadheads, Instagram, Facebook, we're there. We're happy to help. Awesome. Website, there's some stuff there, emails, man. Just reach out if you got a question. We're happy to help.
Awesome, dude. Appreciate it so much.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me, Matty.
Thanks, mate. See ya.
See ya, bro. Bye.